Great. You've seen the paperwork, I know, so, you know, that should work for you.
Yeah, it should. And if I get home, I'll jump on my computer.
Yep. Okay, great. Very good. Thank you, Jill. Okay, 6 o'clock. I'll call roll here to see that we have a quorum. Jill Doyle.
Here.
Doug Holtz.
Here.
Bob Beaudry.
Here.
Ryan Ferguson.
Here.
Joe Plank is here. So we have a full commission here. The first item on the agenda is the approval of the January 19th, 2021 meeting minutes. Is there anyone that has any corrections, adjustments, or whatever to those minutes?
This is Doug. I would recommend that we include the updates that Jill provided for the minutes.
Oh,
And once they are approved, I would recommend that they are approved, and would make a motion for that.
okay.
Yeah, and I added the February 22nd. I changed that.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. So why don't you restate your motion, if you will, Doug?
Subject to Jill Doyle's recommendations, I move that the minutes be approved.
Okay, do we have a second?
This is Bob
I'll
Beaudry. I'll second.
This is Jill.
Okay, we got Bob Beaudry first. So motion by Doug, second by Bob Beaudry. Any further discussion on the minutes? Hearing none, we'll take a vote. All in favor, please signify by saying aye, and I will poll the members. Doug Holtz,
Aye.
Jill Doyle,
Aye.
Bob Beaudry,
Aye.
Brian Ferguson,
Abstain.
abstain. Okay. Joe Plankus, yes. So 4-0 with one abstention. Motion passes. Minutes have been approved.
Hey, Joe.
Next item
real
on the
quickly-
agenda is approval of claims. Does anyone have any questions or comments in regards to the claims? It's a rather lengthy list because there's payments that are being made in January on bonds and those kinds of things, which is normal business that we conduct. Again, any comments or questions in regards to claims?
Yeah. Hey, Joe, this is Bob Beaudry.
Yes.
Couple things. A couple people have messaged me. Is there an IT person on here that could tell? They say that the meeting is not up on YouTube yet. Are we having technical issues again?
Chris, you want to address that, sir?
I'm sorry, what's the question?
Chris Larson?
Yeah, what was the question? Sorry.
The question from Bob was, it is not on YouTube. People are not able to hear the meeting going on. So that we having technical issues. We did.
No,
The other month?
I'm on that as well. I'm listening to it.
Huh. Okay.
I
Hey,
can send you the link if you'd like.
I don't need it, but I just had a couple people sending me messages saying they can't access it. So, or maybe they'll try again. One other comment. Okay, as far as the claims go, and I brought this up in the past, but are we approving claims for payments that have already been made?
That's correct. The payment date, the invoice date is shown in that first column, Bob.
Yeah. Okay. So here's my thing. I don't really like approving claims after the fact. I don't know why don't we ever get to approve them before the payment's actually made? I think this is bad optics from our commission standpoint.
Well, it's done by the city council every meeting they have, Bob. It's the same story.
Yeah.
It's the way
We
the
need to-
system works.
We need to get on them or somebody about this so we can get the claims approved before the payment's actually made.
Well, that's not going to happen, Bob.
It's got to happen because I'm not gonna vote for claims anymore if they're not before the actual payment.
That's your option. Then you have to take it up with the clerk treasurer because this is the way this procedure's been done. Todd, do you have any comments you want to add?
I would only add that this is not a new point that has been made throughout many years. Once a contract is executed, that's a financial commitment, whether it be a bond document or an invoice. That's a financial obligation the city's entered into. And often these claims dockets are awareness tools. So you understand what has been committed and what's being expended by the city, thus the clerk's office, in transacting those. So there is a bit of a retroactivity to it. But if there's a better way, we'll certainly try to figure that out.
You can help me
Yeah,
out,
this
help
is
us out here a little bit, Tom. It just,
Mr.
it's been
President.
optics and
Just
I've,
add to that, if I may. Excuse me, Mr. President, if I may, this is Manny Hertzeg. There's also the issue that Todd mentioned that a lot of these schedules are set out in the bond resolutions themselves in the bond ordinance.
yes.
Failing to pay those on time will affect our bond rating and potentially expose us to further liability. So as Todd explained, that's exactly how it is.
Yeah.
If the procedure should be adjusted, it can't be adjusted at this meeting or any meeting of the RDC. The payment obligation happens at the time of contracting or at the time the bond is issued.
But
This is Brent.
All of these, Bob, all of these payments are legal payments. There's nothing that shows up in claims that shouldn't be paid.
I understand, but I mean, they're on like a semi-annual schedule of when they need to be paid, aren't they?
Yeah, I think some of the payments may be quarterly, some are monthly, not necessarily bond payments, but generally they're twice a year.
So we should know when to anticipate these coming due. I mean, I just don't understand why we're doing that.
We will, at the next meeting, Bob, we will show you and
Okay.
really, John and I have talked about putting together, for the April meeting, a quarterly review of the first quarter of 2021 for Grand Park, and also a year-end report for Grand Park. And we can provide perhaps at the next meeting, by the way, which is March 22nd also, that happens to be the fourth Monday again, we can provide a schedule of when the bonds are being paid.
Okay. Is Jim Treat on here right now?
Yes, I think he is. Jim, are you there?
Yep, I am. Sorry, I was muted. I forgot I was muted.
Okay,
Okay,
so
go
I'm
ahead.
sorry. I wanted to ask Jim. So I know every year you do an annual report on the TIFs.
Yes.
Any anticipation when that will become available? For
Oh, I'm not sure if it'll be, well, it has to be before the 1st of March, or April, sorry.
okay.
By the 1st of April, so probably sometime in late March. I don't have an exact date. Is that good enough?
Oh, that's fine.
We have a
That's
March
fine.
22nd meeting, Jim. So if you can prepare that report, say a few days before that meeting, so the folks have a chance to review it, that would be
Yeah, let me make a note. The 22nd is the next meeting?
Monday, the 22nd of March is the next redevelopment commission meeting. So if you can
Right.
provide the documents to us prior to that, just like we normally get our documents Thursday, Friday, prior to a meeting, then I'll give everybody time to take a look at it.
That'd be awesome, Joe. And also, someone needs to update the city website so the calendar for our meetings is on the actual website, because they're not on there.
Okay, I thought we had made that adjustment, John Rogers. Did we? Well, we'll check it. If it's not on, if you say it's not on there, it's not on there, we'll get it on there.
Yep. Okay.
Okay.
This is Brian Ferguson. I'd like to sort of echo what Bob was saying. And, I keep hearing that there are contracts and these were entered into and they're set schedules. And if that's the case, then I don't understand why those can't be presented before they're actually paid. I don't understand really what the effect of approving a payment that's already been made, what that does. Is somebody saying?
You want to address that?
Is somebody saying if we decline to approve them, then what happens? I mean, we're not going to be able to get the money back.
Manny, would you like to address that, please?
Sure. There's nothing really more to add except that if somebody doesn't want to vote yay on a claim, they can vote nay. Otherwise, the claims, at the time they come to you, the presumption is they've been vetted by the clerk treasurer's office, that they're tied to an obligation that's already been made, and there's really the city has to pay the claims. But if your vote is no, that's fine.
No, I get that. I'm trying to understand what the point of it is. If the city is obligated to make the payments and they're being made, then why do we need to approve them?
It's a confirmation from the commission, Brian, that the payment has been made. for whatever the payment is, bond payment, interest, a contractual payment, for work performed, whatever it is. And that's the way to, I've been here for 20 years, Brian, and this has been handled through all of the town councils, city councils, forever and ever, just the same way. The clerk treasurer has the obligation to make the payment, and this is the information tool to us, city council, whoever, that payment has been made and what account it got charged to and so on.
Mr. Blankus,
Let's move on. We're going to get
this is
the
Todd.
information on the bond payments because that's obviously the bigger dollars. And we'll try to get that for the March meeting, and we'll have a wrap up of and some year end and quarterly and month end reports, quarterly end reports for Grand Park at the April meeting. Okay, any other questions on claims? You said you had two, Bob. That was one. Is there another one?
No, that was it.
That was it? Okay. Okay, so if there are no further questions, we'll take a vote on claims. Do I have a motion? I move that we approve the claims. Joe Plankus, do I have a second?
This is Doug. I second this.
Okay, second by Doug Holtz. I'll take roll call. All in favor of approving claims, please signify by saying aye. Brian Ferguson,
Nay.
Beaudry,
Aye.
Jill Doyle,
Aye.
Doug Holtz,
Aye.
Joe Plankus, aye. 4-1 vote, motion passes. Next item on the agenda is Resolution 01-2021, declaratory resolution amending the declaratory resolution and economic development plan for the Grand Junction Economic Development Area. I'm going to ask Todd to introduce this one, so it's all yours, Todd, and then turn it back to me when you're finished.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Plankus. For the members of the commission, what's before you this evening is, in fact, a resolution to amend the declaratory resolution that was set relative to, as you read in the text body, Grand Junction Economic Development Area. This comes before you this evening as a first step of approximately 17 steps in the probable, not yet committed, public-private partnership with that of Old Town Development and to construct a public parking garage in the downtown area. This is worth noting, has come, this change in this project has come about largely at the encouragement of members of the city council. And so we have worked with members of the Old Town Development Group to realize a way to bring that project forward. Again, this is approximately 17 steps before anything is finalized. And tonight, your action item is simply to amend this resolution, taking 4 parcels out of the Grand Junction TIF area, economic development area, and assigning them to the Union Square suballocation area. If you choose to do that, that allows us, you, the Redevelopment Commission, to capture the increment created by Old Town on the parcels they seek to develop on these particular parcels of land. There's no financial commitment that you're committing to tonight. There's no predisposed outcome that you are approving or considering tonight. It's just a administrative exercise before you to amend this resolution to bring these 4 parcels into a suballocated area. Therefore, you would be able to capture 100% of the increment created by the Old Town Development Group in the Union Square, and then what is more appropriately known as our Phase 2, which encompasses these particular parcels. So again, this is an amendment to an existing resolution. It does not make a predisposition of commitment to in finances by the commission or for the city council or the Economic Development Commission. So with that, I'm happy to take your questions. And again, this is one step of approximately 17 that will carry us through June of this year in the timetable that has been presented.
Hey, Todd, this is Bob Beaudry. Couple questions. I was reading, so the plan is to run this through the Westfield Building Corporation instead of the RDA. I was just curious what the reasoning was for that.
The statutory resolution or reasoning for that, and I'll defer to Catherine Finello of Creek DeVault, who's the bond counselor working on this project.
Thank you, Todd. Good evening, everyone. Mr. Beaudry, basically, we have a developer project here, a developer that is involved in the project, and the Economic Development Statute allows the city redevelopment commission to use the developer to complete this project. So it gives the maximum flexibility here.
But why wouldn't you just run it through the RDA?
Well, then the developer is not going to be able to develop the project as they would under the statute. And I believe Justin can probably, if he's on the call, can talk about the entire development of the project. But running it through the RDA is not going to allow the developer the flexibility to actually develop the project. That's not the purpose of the RDA. That purpose lies within the Economic Development Revenue Statute.
So does the Westfield Building Corporation exist today? And if so, I mean, and who's on this corporation?
The building corporation actually exists from a prior bond issue that I wasn't involved in, but I think it was the public safety bonds at one time, and Todd, I could probably add to that. And so we would look to use that, which, as you may have seen by reading the statute, is an authorized lessor of the project.
Well, who's on the board of this corporation? Or is it run through the Public Works?
No.
The Westfield Building Corp, Mr. Beaudry, the Westfield Building Corp actually exists in form only at this point in time.
Okay.
It'd have to be repopulated. And to further Mrs. Finello's point, this is a statutory mechanism that gives not only the Westfield Building Corp and the Redevelopment Commission the ability to engage with the developer. The developer would be the one actually doing the work to bring the project together and the garage together to align with the proposed multi-family project. Rather than have two separate contractors, two separate projects, this affords us the opportunity to enter into a public-private partnership with oversight of the developer on the construction project, of the bidding process, all those things that we normally would do.
And we won't be bidding this project.
No.
Correct.
Right.
Correct.
Sorry. I was just going to say the Economic Development Statute, that's one of the benefits of that statute is to allow developers to come in and develop projects. Again, it gives maximum flexibility. And as Todd stated, we just wouldn't be able to do that under the Redevelopment Authority statute.
But it's going to be backed by the incremental increase in potential revenue, and if not, the lit, right? So basically, okay, I understand.
Okay, any other questions for Todd?
Yeah, this is Doug Holtz. A question: if we do not approve this, would we still capture the incremental income? Or go ahead.
Good, as a very good question, sir. It would flow to the greater economic development area in the Grand Junction TIF. This suballocation area confines those revenues to this project. So therefore, we are able to control the increment and also enter into this partnership with the developer specific for this purpose and these revenues to cover the eventual bond obligation if it's approved.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions for Todd?
This is Brian. So I guess I don't understand why we need to put more money towards this development. They already have a $6 million bond, correct?
No, they do not. So are you talking about the project that was presented back in 2019?
Yeah, ordinance 19-67.
Those bonds were never issued.
Okay, why weren't they issued?
Approval, and there was approval, but those bonds were never issued.
Why is that?
Well, that would be a question for Old Town and Todd, but
Does that mean
This is Justin. I'm glad to step in if appropriate and answer that question.
Go right ahead, sir.
Justin Moffett with Old Town Companies. This proposed expansion of the Union Square project was largely driven by a community response towards parking need. And you are correct, sir. We would have the ability to move forward with the original Union Square project and use those those TIF proceeds to build that project. However, there is zero obligation, and it wasn't even contemplated to build additional public parking within that project. We are starting this process of conversation, and as Todd alluded to, it's a multi-step process that involves both the Redevelopment Commission, the Redevelopment Authority, and the council. So there's multiple bites at the apple in this conversation. But adding this into the overall project creates the potential of additional resources to build public parking that was not planned in the original project. So that's really what we're seeking to do here. Is we spent a lot of time talking to the business community, trying to solve for how do we create actual physical space for more public parking. But then if we found that space, how would we fund the cost of building that public parking? And we saw this as an opportunity to do that.
Aren't those TIF properties in the Grand Junction already allocated to pay off the bonds for Grand Junction?
There's no increment coming off of those right now. So there's the Grand Junction TIF, and it's a large geographic area. So there's no increment being captured off of those particular parcels right now, Mr. Ferguson, and it was never contemplated until they developed. Now with this, again, at the behesting of many of the city councilors, there's a way to provide a public parking garage using the increment that Old Town will be producing on these particular parcels.
Let me put it another way, if I can. This is Joe Plankus. The parcels to the east of Union Street have no increment being spun off because there's nothing been built on that property since that became part of the Grand Junction TIF. So we are taking parcels that are generating nothing from the Grand Junction and we're putting it into the sub-allocation area for Union Square.
Hey, but Joe, this is Bob Beaudry. Listen, so the whole purpose of Grand Junction was to attract and build out this economic development area that the money was supposed to go back into the Grand Junction TIF, and we're sub-allocating. We don't have any type of numbers as far as anticipated revenue increments and how that's going to impact debt. I mean, you're talking about a TIF area that's pretty expansive that already has about roughly 6 acres of Grand Junction taking up an area that's going to create zero assessed valuation. And you're saying we need to sub-allocate more area and take on more debt to create increment that was supposed to happen when we built Grand Junction, the park. That's what's a little confusing to me. It's not that I'm against the project. I'm not saying that, but I would like to see numbers that shows how the increment is
way ahead of the game here. The first thing we've got to do is move the parcels, Bob, because that's what triggers ability to be able to calculate that.
Okay.
Going forward. Until we do that,
okay,
there's nothing to calculate.
Okay.
Well, how do we know we have a shortfall?
What's that? Who's speaking?
I said, how do you know that we have a shortfall right now? If we're going to issue, we have 6 million still to even be issued. I guess I'm still stuck on. Okay. I mean, there's representation. Yeah, it may not be generating income right now, but nothing was for Grand Junction when it was allocated as a TIF. The point being that, when those bonds were issued, there were representations made about what properties were going to encompass that TIF to pay back those bonds. I don't think you can just reallocate them.
Not been issued. Let's remember that. As Justin just said, the bonds have not been issued because there's been no development taking place north of Jersey Street between Jersey and 32.
The Grand Junction bonds have not been issued?
Please. Then we're going to add these additional parcels to it that will generate it for the additional. I mean, we're taking a $32 million project and it's going to end up what, like 75 million, Justin?
Right now, our conservative estimates is 69.
Okay, 69 million. So we are more than doubling the assessed value that is going to be developed by adding those parcels to the original Union Square development. And all those numbers need to be crunched once we move the parcels. Then that's the first step. It's like saying, "Hey, I'm going to build a house," but you haven't bought the lot yet.
So, Mr. Plakas, this is Todd. I might just make a recommendation here that just reminding the commission and all of this on the call. There is a deal in place. Mr. Ferguson points to a $6 million bond that was not issued, and that is correct. He is correct. That has not been executed upon. If this commission so chooses not to move forward with this, then this project does not move forward. I would recommend that you tell the members, the members appointed by the city council, to retreat with the city council who appointed them and get their marching orders, as they already have, as to the ambition and the motivation that the council has been the impetus to for us to put all this work product together and bring at this first stage. So if the members of the commission are not comfortable with approving the language of this particular resolution, I would recommend you either place it up for a vote or you table it, and Mr. Beaudry, Mr. Ferguson can retreat with the city council and get a better understanding as to how and why we've arrived at this location tonight.
Yeah, we have a timetable laid out that I had requested from Catherine. It's an excellent learning tool as well as I'll call it a punch list for what needs to take place. We are not going to table this. This needs to move forward if we are going to stick to the dates that are on here, including for the city council actions that they have to take. So this is a switch of 4 parcels from one part of the TIF district to a sub-allocation area, which will then generate $69 million of investment, assuming all the steps that we take, all 17 steps are approved and fall into place, and the developer then goes forward with the project. This follows, I'll put on my economic development hat for a minute. This follows exactly what we had planned in the 2007 comprehensive land use plan to generate that amenity in the form of Grand Junction Plaza, and would encourage development by whoever would like to add their development projects to downtown Westfield. And this is right on target, right on plan, exactly the kind of thing we want to see. So if we don't have any further questions, I'm going to look for a motion for approval of this resolution.
This is Brian Ferguson. I do have one more comment. Are we done with the presentation then, as far as Mr. Bertrand and others are going? I mean, there's a clause on page 2. It says, whereas the 2021 amendments and supporting data were reviewed and considered at the meeting. What's the supporting data?
That would be the map and information that you received. I mean, basically, it's the map and the exhibits to the amending declaratory resolution. As we move through the process, Jim Treat will be preparing a tax impact statement. That would be for the March meeting, I believe. So the data you have before you right now is basically the map and also the presentation by Mr. Moffitt.
The resolution is the data that we've all been provided, and that's what we're acting on. Then as we go further through the process, then numbers come out, the various steps and the like. And then again, anywhere along the line, it can be stopped, but that's up to council, RDA, RDC, and so on. We'll get another crack at this come April. So again, I'll move that we transfer these 4 parcels as requested in the resolution 01-2021. Look for a second.
This is Doug Holtz. I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any additional comments?
Yeah, I think Mr. Bertrand had a good idea about tabling it, and you just said you weren't going to do it. I would have preferred to have a motion to table it first before you've already moved into the vote. But if that's the way we want to go, then I'll vote no.
And that's certainly your prerogative, Brian. This has been presented to the council. As I think has been indicated, there's a great deal of interest in this. All
Hey,
the
Joe,
information was
Joe.
provided late Friday afternoon. There was plenty of time to seek additional information. Bob had a couple good questions he sent to me, which I responded to today. Jill Doyle did. We fixed up a couple errors that we had to get a clear understanding of the bond chart, as well as the question that came up about the Indiana code. So,
Hey, Joe, just one point of clarification. All we're voting on tonight is creating the sub-allocation area should we decide to move forward.
that's a good
it.
way of putting it. The sub-allocation area was created in 2019 for
Okay.
Square. We are adding this other portion to it. Am I correct, Catherine?
You are correct, Mr. Plaintiff.
Okay.
But if it doesn't approve down the road, nothing's really changed. It's still within the Grand Junction TIF.
Still within the original TIF district. It's in, if Union Square developer pulls out, those parcels are still part of the Grand Junction TIF allocation area.
Right. Okay.
So all we're doing is we're moving the parcels to a different area of the TIF district so they can support the moving forward with the financial analysis and all the other things in consultation with Justin and the city and the council.
Okay.
I haven't heard this, Brian. I have not heard an explanation of why, if the 4 parcels aren't moved, that stops the deal entirely. Why is that?
The explanation, Mr. Ferguson, is those 4 parcels Old Town Plant has contemplated and will develop. That will generate the increment on those 4 parcels for the commission to capture that increment. That will then be combined with the Union Square increment to cover the debt obligation if it's entered into.
Does it matter to the city whether it's paid out of LIR or LIT or general funds, as opposed to saying that some TIF district's going to cover that and all these obligations?
Absolutely, it matters. That's what the statute's set up for, so we don't use general fund operating dollars. Local income tax is a backstop as a debt coverage in case other things fail. And there'll be further information describing that process beyond this evening, but it does matter, and it allows exactly what TIF is designed for in the statute, is to create public-private partnerships and bring public dollars using and create a public asset. So we're not burdening the rest of the taxpayers, directly the taxpayers, the residential property taxpayers, et cetera, et cetera. So we're following what the statute sets out.
Yeah, I would just argue that that doesn't appear to be sufficient funds to pay back a lot of these TIFs already, the income generated, and yet we're going to add another one.
I don't know where you get that information, Brian, but all the TIFs are being paid as far as I know, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, John Rogers. Everything is working as planned.
Well, you bring up a good point. Perhaps you can provide me a schedule with all the TIFs and all the obligations and the schedules and the assessed values and everything else. That would be handy.
We will have that, as I said earlier. We will address that at the March meeting. We'll have that prior to the March meeting. Okay, any other questions or comments? Okay, we have a motion on the floor for approval of resolution 01-2021. I'll take a roll call. Brian Ferguson.
Nay.
Bob Beaudry.
I'm going to abstain.
Okay, that's your prerogative, Bob. Jill Doyle.
Aye.
Doug Holtz.
Aye.
Joe Plankus, aye. Motion passes 3-1 with 1 abstention.
So I'm sorry to do this, but may I ask Mr. Hersig, whether an abstention, well, did we have a majority vote?
Yeah,
I guess we did, right?
motion is passed, Catherine.
Yeah.
So-
Okay, all right.
Yeah, it's passed. We're fine.
I withdraw my question.
Okay, thank you. Any other business to come before the commission, Mr. Rogers or Catherine or Todd?
No, I think you have the timeline. So the next, on this specific action item, I believe it's
Goes before
April. April will be the next time we come before you, and there'll be sufficient data, finances, and estimates that we've been working with Mr. Treat on those assumptions. So we'll be providing those in the very near future.
Okay, thank you, Todd. I appreciate that. Seeing no other business before the commission, do I have a motion for adjournment?
This is Doug, so
This
moved.
is Jill.
Okay, Jill Doyle, second. Doug Holtz,
Yep.
motion for adjournment. All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Doug Holtz,
Aye.
Jill Doyle,
Hi.
Joe Plankus, aye. Bob Beaudry,
Aye.
Brian Ferguson.
I apologize. What are we voting on?
We're voting on adjournment.
Adjournment.
Oh, sure. I'm down with that.
Okay, very good. 5-0 vote. Meeting is adjourned. Thank you all for attending. Appreciate the questions. Again, please, as we move through this process, if there are questions that come up, hopefully I'm able to respond in a timely manner. I think I did for Jill and Todd and Bob. So we try to provide the information as best we can as we move through this very complex and laborious process. Okay, thank you all and good night. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Joe.
You bet. Bye now.